Hello everyone, I welcome you into today's lesson. Today we're gonna start with the chapter 2 questions for preparing to your exam. I hope you guys all ready for that, and let's hope you get good grades in my exam. Okay, so here we go. So today we're gonna start at the beginning. I'm gonna start with solving the literature equation. First one is define the following terms. عرف المصطلحات الآتية. Number one is the chemical reaction. Number one is the chemical equation. شنو هو تعريف chemical equation أو المعادلة الكيميائية؟ It's an expression وتعبير that gives the identity and quantity. هو ينطينا identity هي الهوية المركب الكيميائي، والquantity قد عدد كمية المادة الداخلة بالتفاعل of the substance involved in a chemical reaction. المواد الداخلة في التفاعل الكيميائي. مثلا عندي هاي chemical equation H2 plus O2 equal to H2O. Now بهذا التفاعل دخل عندي identity is the hydrogen is reacting with the oxygen to make H2O, water. The quantity is I have 2 hydrogen atoms with 1 hydrogen atom to form 2 compound called H2O, which is the water that have H2 hydrogen 2 and oxygen 1. Okay, now in the chemical reaction, he's asking you what is the chemical reaction? It's the process that leads to the chemical transformations of one set of chemical substance to another. What do I mean by that? هي العملية التي تقودني to the chemical transformation إلى التغير الكيميائي of one set of chemical. إذا تتغير عندي هاي المواد, this is one set of chemical to another set حتى يكون عندي compound, element to compound or compound to compound, where the idea is that I have to have a change. لازم يصير عندي تغيير, يتغير عندي إلى مادة ثانية. هذا هو chemical reaction, التفاعل الكيميائي. Then you have something called the mole. What do I mean by the mole? Is the amount of material containing the number of Avogadro from the unit of object. المول هو وحدة أنا أستخدمها راح تتعرفون عليها بالسنين القادمة. But for this year, it's only enough that you understand the Avogadro concept within the mole concept inside it. Later on, you have the product and reactant. The product هي المادة الناتجة من التفاعل الكيميائي, والreactant هي المادة الداخلة للتفاعل الكيميائي. مثل ما عندنا هسه بالمعادلة, الهيدروجين والأكسجين هي الreactant المتفاعلات, والH2O هي البرودكت المادة الخارجة من التفاعل. Now, if you want to define it, both of them are the substance, but you have to find the location. Product, you can find it on the right arrow, and the reactant on the left arrow of the chemical equation على المعادلة الكيميائية. Or you can say it's the reactant is substance that present in the start of the chemical reaction, while the product is the substance that you can find on the end of the chemical reaction. Okay, that's for the definition. Now, question 2 said, what are the benefits of chemical equation? بيش استفاد من دراسة المعادلة الكيميائية؟ استفاد من دراسة المعادلة الكيميائية is that the chemical equation helped me to visualize the movement of the atoms. ساعدني إنه أني أتخيل حركة الذرات داخل التفاعل الكيميائي. مثل المعادلة اللي واضحة قدامكم, اللي هي دخلت عندي هيدروجين وأكسجين, ظهر عندي بعدين H2O. من خلال كتابة المعادلة أقدر أني أتصور هذا الشيء بشكل أسهل. A chemical equation will tell you the formula and samples of the reactant and the product. الchemical equation راح تقول لك شنو هي المواد اللي دخلت واللي طلعت من التفاعل الكيميائي، كذلك تساعدك بمعرفة الكوانتيتيز مالتها اللي هي أعدادها، إيش قد عندي دخل هيدروجين وإيش قد عندي خرج. A chemical equation can show the physical state of a substance, whether it's solid, liquid, and gas, or in a solution. What does he mean by that? As you know from the the easiest one in the whole world is that the H2 plus O2 equal to H2O. Now, this is the chemical equation that makes the water. Now, what does he mean by the physical state? The physical state is, this one is the gas actually, and this one is gas, and this is liquid. Physical state هي الحالة الوجودية لهذا العنصر أو المركب. فالهيدروجين موجود بشكل غاز يتفاعل مع الأكسجين اللي هو أيضا غاز حتى يكون المي اللي هو liquid. Okay, now this is for the definition explanation part of these questions. Now we're gonna start with the actual more balancing and type of chemical reaction. So here we go. Now 2.3, he said, show the following reaction with the balance formula equation. شو يريد منك؟ يريد منك إنه أنت تكتب الرمز، وبعدين ورا ما تكتب الرمز توازن المعادلة الكيميائية. So we're gonna start with the silver. Silver is an Ag plus chlorine gas. It's a Cl, but you're gonna write Cl2. Why? Because you remember these diatomic gases, it's called, I don't know if you heard of this or not. So it's gonna be Ag plus Cl2. So you're gonna have something like this. You will have AgCl. Now you remember from the first chapter, you remember the oxidation number اللي هي أعداد التأكسد. So the Ag oxidation is a +1 and the chlor is -1. So since the net charge of them is 0, I don't really need to do anything to write a subscript here. So I just balance it. Now when you want to make balancing, remember is that reactant always equal product. So what do you mean by that? For example, here the Ag is 1. The Ag here is 1. But what about the chlor? The chlor here is 2. And in here is 1. So this is not correct. I need to make this 2. So what should I do? I just multiply this by 2. Now this one is multiplied by 2, which is equal to 2. But now this one is also multiplied by 2. Remember, if you are because these are compound now, هذا مركب يعني اللي تسوي على الأول يصير على الثاني. So this is also 2. So this one is 1. So multiply this one also by 2. So it will turn into 2. And you have now a balanced chemical equation. So 2Ag plus Cl2 will unite to make 2AgCl. This is the idea. Now moving on to the next one. The next one is copper. Copper is Cu. If you know copper, it's نحاس plus oxygen gas. Now oxygen is also one of the diatomic gases. So you have to keep in your mind it come with 2 in the original state, because if you remember from chapter 1, it's a covalent bond, يعني عاصرة تساهمية. So it has to have 2 inside it. So Cu plus O, we will make CuO, but if you see it here, 2, the oxidation number of copper here is 2 because he have multi-oxidation number. So this one is actually +2 and the oxygen is -2. So I really don't need to do anything because if you remember, if the net charge is equal to 0, you really don't have to do anything. Now, I just want to make sure that step number 2, that I make sure that my reactant is equal to the product. Now, this one is 1 and this one is 1, so I'm happy. This one is 2 and this one is 1, so I'm not happy. So what should I do? I multiply the whole one is by 2, so this one will be 2 and this one will be 2, so I need to multiply this also by 2 in here. So now I have balanced chemical equation. So actually 2Cu will unite with 1O2, so you will have 2CuO. This is the balanced chemical formula for making copper oxide. Okay, so moving on to the next one. Now the next one is zinc plus chlorine gas. Now you remember chlorine gas is also one of these guys of 2. Okay, and you have zinc chloride, the compound zinc chloride. Now zinc oxidation state is a +2, Cl oxidation state is -1, so it's equal to 0. So this one is cannot be true. So you remember from the first chapter, if you have Z and if you have a +2 and -1, you do the scissor thing. So the 2 comes here and the 1 comes here. So you will have Z and Cl2. So this will be 2, so this will be 2, and you will have it equal to 0. Okay, so the idea is, guys, is that I need to make sure that I have the net charge is 0. الشحنة مالتي تبع الشبكة تكون مساوية للصفر. Okay, now I have the balancing stuff. So the whole idea is that the product must equal to the reactant. So this one is 1, this one is 2, this one is 1, and this one is 2. So I really don't have to do anything for this one. Okay, now moving on to the next one. Next one is iron, Fe, plus oxygen. So this is really the rusting thing. Okay, اللي هو صدأ الحديد. The iron, remember the oxidation state here is 2, as you can see. So keep in your mind, you always need to check for the oxidation state for the compound for the element who have a lot of oxidation state. The oxygen is one of them. Okay, copper is also one of them. Okay, so doing that, Fe. Oh, so he's telling me the oxidation number is 2. So sorry for my plus, and this one is 2, so my net charge is 0, so I really don't have to do anything here. So now remember, this one is 2, this one is 1, this one is 1, and this one is 1, so I have a problem. So what should I do? Multiply this by 2, so those will become 2, and this one also multiplied by 2, so it will be equal to 2, and everyone is really, really happy. Okay, that's the whole idea, guys, is that your reactant must always equal to your product. Okay, that's the idea. Okay, reactant must equal to the product. Okay, moving on to the next one. The next one is talking about sodium, Na, plus a chlorine gas, which is Cl2. Okay, now it has sodium chloride, the table salt, okay, NaCl. Now, why did it become NaCl? Because the oxidation number of Na is +1. The oxidation number of chlorine is -1. So this one will take this one, and I have a net charge equal to 0. So I'm very happy. Now I'm go to the balancing stuff. This one is 1. This one is 2. Now the Na here is 1 and the chlorine is 1, so I need to do something about it. I multiply this by 2, so this one will change into 2, this one as well. So I need to multiply this also by 2, so multiply it by 2. So your equation gonna be something like this. Cl2 equal to 2 NaCl. Okay, now I'm happy. Okay, now moving on to the next question. The next question is actually pretty simple. He already gave you the element and the compound. All you have to do is do the balancing thing. So you have Mg plus O2 and you have MgO. So whenever you see this, actually it's everything you have to do is pretty simple, because the Mg is 1, the oxygen is 1, here the oxygen is 2 and the Mg is 1. So all you have to do is multiply this by 2. How? Put 2 here, and this one also multiplied by 2 by putting 2 here. So everything is set up. Okay, all you have to do is multiply the one who doesn't have 2 as a subscript by 2, and you all set to go. Okay, now moving on to the next one. Guys, check this one. This is Mg plus N2. Okay, you will have something called Mg3 and 2. Now you're probably wondering where this Mg3 come from. It's coming from the oxidation number of nitrogen, which is a 3, and this is coming from the oxidation number of magnesium, which is a +2. Okay, so 2 multiplied by this is -6 and this is +6, so the net charge is actually 0. But I don't want to go to this because it's not required. All you have to do really is just do the balancing thing. So the Mg here is 3, the nitrogen here the nitrogen here is 2, the Mg here is 1. Okay, the nitrogen is 2, so the nitrogen is cool. All you have to do is multiply the Mg by 3 and you are all set to go. Okay, moving on to the next one. N2 plus O2 equal to NO. Okay, now this one is 2 and this one is 2. Now this one is 1 and this one is 1, so what should I do? Multiply it by 2. Okay, this is all what you have to do, so it will become something like this. O2 equal to NO. Okay, that's it. Moving on to the next one. The next one is a little bit more tricky. It have CO, monooxide, monocarbon oxide, and O2, and you have carbon dioxide, guys. Now in this one, I really prefer if you do it like this. Carbon is 1 while the oxygen here is 3. Okay, in here the oxygen is 2 and the carbon is 1. So your problem is with the oxygen, okay, because they are not equal. So what should you do? I mean, the oxygen here you have 1 and in here you have 2. Okay, now it's always better to play with this one. This is with 2, so multiply this by 2, so it's gonna be 4, and in here it's gonna be 2. Okay, so it's easier to just multiply this by 2, because if I multiply this, you're gonna have more trouble because the carbon will be not equal. Okay, so just multiply this by 2. Now the carbon gonna be 2, okay, and the oxygen is gonna be 2 here and 2 here, so they are equal. Actually they are equal to 4. So I'm gonna repeat it to you because you probably now confused even more better. So CO plus O2 equal to CO2. Okay, I multiply this by 2. Now carbon I have 2 and oxygen I have 4. Okay, now here I have 2 oxygen and I multiply this by 2, so here I have 2 oxygen and carbon 2. So this is actually summation between them, so they're gonna be equal to 4. So my oxygen is correct, my carbon is correct, and I am very, very happy. Okay, moving on to the next one. Now, the next one is actually making the mercury oxide. So this is mercury, guys. Okay, so mercury oxidation is 2. So in here we have a problem. Now, since this is 2, okay, I told you guys, just multiply this by 2 and this by 2 and you are all done. Why? Because this is 2 and you need everything, you know, in balance. Okay, so this is it for this question. Moving on to the next one. Now, the next one is really asking you to correct if there is something wrong in the balancing. So take a look at this. You have aluminum plus oxygen, and you have aluminum oxide. So this one is actually a little bit more complicated. Now keep in your mind you have aluminum here 2 and you have oxygen 3. Okay, and in here you have oxygen 2 and you have aluminum just 1. Okay, so what should you do about this? Okay, now consider the last thing first. Consider multiply it by 2. So multiply this by 2 and this by 2 by adding 2 here. It's gonna be this one 4 and this one 6. Okay, now 6 is a really good number. I use it in balancing. Why? Because it's easy, because this is 2 here, it's 2. Okay, so just put this 3, multiply this by 3, and you also here will have 6. How? By adding in 3 here. Okay, now the oxygen is happy. Okay, in here you have 4, so just put 4 here. So this one will be multiplied by 4 and it will also equal by 4. Okay, so you get the idea. Start with 2 because 2 is the easiest thing and move forward. If you are happy, just put it like this. It will be really, really easy. Okay, now moving on to the next one. The next one is CH4 and oxygen 2, and you have CO2 plus H2O. Now in here it's a little bit more complicated because it's interacting between each other. So let's see what can we do. Now the hydrogen here is 2 and the oxygen here is 1. The carbon here is 1 and the oxygen here is 2. Okay, now the oxygen here is 2 and the carbon here is 1. Okay, now the hydrogen here is 4. So I have a problem. Why? Because my hydrogen here is higher and also my oxygen is less. Okay, now in here I have total oxygen of 3. Okay, so I have a problem. Now since the hydrogen is 4, just multiply this by 4. Okay, so this one's gonna be 2 and this one's gonna be 2. Okay, so in here I have 4 and the oxygen I have 2. Okay, now this one is change. I have 4 oxygen atom. Okay, now what I really don't know if it's balanced or not, but before I can check. Okay, now the oxygen here is 4. Okay, but in here it's still 2, so I need more. Okay, I should put 2 here, so this one will be by 2, so it's gonna be 4. Okay, now I didn't play with this because I don't want to play with the carbon, and if I put 2 here, if I put 2 here, it will be too much trouble for me. Okay, because I have to play with the carbon, so no need to do that. Just add something to the oxygen. Now let me repeat it for you one last time, because probably now you are even more confused than the beginning. So starting with it, it was a CH4 plus O2 equal to CO2 plus H2O. Okay, now I have oxygen here 1 and oxygen here 2, carbon here 1 and hydrogen here is 2. Now my oxygen here is 2, and my carbon here is 1, and my hydrogen is 4. So I have a problem is this one is less. Multiply this by 2. Now you're gonna have this one 2, and you're gonna have this one 4. Okay, now you only have one trouble is that your oxygen here is 4, while in here it's 2. So just multiply this by 2, and you have your oxygen 4, and you are really good to go. The reason I didn't put anything here is that I have to mess around with the carbon, and then I have to change a lot. Okay, so always think of simplifying the balancing. Don't go overall. Okay, now moving on to the last one. The last one is, moving on to the next one. The last one is 2K, 2 potassium plus Br2, making 2KBr. Okay, so you have 2K with 2Br, and in here you have K2 and Br2. So why mess with the good stuff, huh? It's already good, and you are all set to go. Okay, so moving on to the next one. Now the next one is saying at a high temperature potassium chloride, at a very high temperature potassium chloride compound, this is the potassium chloride he's showing you with this formula. Since he's saying its form decompose into potassium chloride and oxygen gas as shown in the following reaction. Write what you dedicate from this reaction. So what do you think about this reaction? He's asking for your idea. So the answer for question 2.7 is that when it's break, it form 2 KCl, which is a potassium chloride molecule, which is a salt molecule. It's not really an oxide, or as you can say, it's a hydroxide or base. No, it's a salt because it's formed from potassium and the chloride, and it produces 3 oxygen. That means 3 oxygen molecule. This is really the idea, is that when you heat a compound like this, it decompose, يتفكك من أحمي مركب مثل هذا، يتفكك ويكون عندي جزيئتين من الKCl اللي هو ملح، و3 جزيئات من الأكسجين. Okay, now moving on to the next one. Now the next one is talking about the complete the following reaction, and then determine the type of each reaction. يقول لك بالبداية إنه أنت تحل المعادلة، ثم تبدأ بمعرفة نوع التفاعل. Okay, the type of chemical reaction. Now the first one is actually Br2 plus KKI. Now since it's an element عنصر ويا compound, you're gonna say it's a single displacement reaction اللي هو تبديل. Okay, لكن تبديل شلون يكون نوعه؟ تبديل فردي. Okay, so now this is the type of the chemical reaction. Moving on to the balancing stuff. So it's Br2 plus Ki. What should I have? Okay, now the Br is gonna react. This is the positive side and this is the negative side. So the Pr is actually negative. So he will react with the positive side. So you will have KBr plus I. Okay, I don't know if you can see the I. Let me just put it back here so you can see it. Okay, so it's gonna be plus I2. Why I2, guys? Because you remember the I is one of the elements that can find in diatomic. Okay, now moving on to the balancing stuff. K is actually positive, okay, and Br is actually negative So this is positive 1 and this is negative 1, so it's gonna be 0. So I really don't have to do the scissor thing. Okay, so I just balance the following equation. Now remember, in here you have the bromine here. The bromine is one of the diatomic here, so you have bromine 2 equal to 2, and your K is 1 and your I is 1, but in here you have bromine 1, K 1, and iodine 2. So you have a problem here. You need to make balancing stuff. Okay, so let's do it first. Let's multiply this one by 2. Okay, so now I have 2 bromine, but this one is checked, this one is checked, but I have a problem here because this is actually 2 and this is 1, so I multiply this by 2. Now this one's gonna be 2 and this one's gonna be 2, so the iode is also happy. Okay, so all the parts are now happy. Remember, this is a single displacement reaction, so because I am only replacing one type of the element of the compound. Okay, now moving on to the next one. The next one is talking about zinc reacting with the hydrochloric acid, forming what? Now, when the zinc react with the hydrochloric acid, it made a salt, milح. Okay, it's called ZCl. Okay, remember the zinc oxidation is 2, the chlor is +1, so this is gonna be 2. Okay, so when this is 2, this is equal to 0, and I'm happy. Okay, now it will also have the H. Okay, so the H is, remember, the H is one of the two, the releasing of the hydrogen gas. It's a diatomic molecule. Okay, so remember that. So now I have a problem with my balancing. So my Zn is equal to 1, my H is equal to 1, and my Cl is equal to 1 in the reactant side. But in the product side, no, I have a problem. The Z1 is equal to 1, while the chlor is equal to 2, and the hydrogen is also equal to 2. So what is the common between them that I can change to make everything 2? Is actually this. When I make it 2, okay, everything is balanced and I'm all set to go. Okay, now what is the type of this reaction? Okay, actually it's the same as the type of the first one, is the single displacement reaction. Okay, تفاعل تغيير. Why? Because you have one element changing in one compound, so it's definitely single displacement. Okay, moving on to the next one. Now this next one is the calcium, reactant of the calcium plus Cl2. Okay, it will form what? Okay, now the calcium is positive and this one is negative, so you will have a salt. You have calcium chloride. Okay, now remember the calcium is a +2, so this is a +2 and this is definitely -1, so you have a problem. So put this here 2, this one will be 2, and your net charge will equal to 0, and you don't have to do anything anymore. Okay, now this one is actually really straightforward, and take a look at the the balancing thing. Is this one is 2, this one is 2, this one is 1, this one is 1, so you really don't have to do anything. Okay, so no balancing required here. But what is the type of this reaction? As you can see, you have one element uniting. They يتفاعل, or let's say they يتحد. Okay, uniting with the other element, and you have a compound. So this one definitely you call it a combination reaction. Okay, because it's forming a compound from 2 elements. Okay, it's a combination reaction. And moving on to the next one. The next one is NaClO3. That's all. Okay, it will decompose guys. راح يتفكك إلى NaCl, okay, plus oxygen, okay, and don't forget this too, okay. راح يتكون عندي ملح الطعام مع الأكسجين, okay. Now I really don't have to do anything because this is +1 and this is -1, so my net charge is equal, and this is actually by itself, so you really don't have to do anything to it. So just remember to do the balancing. After that you have Na. Remember here you have Na equal to 1 and Cl equal to 1, and the oxygen here is equal to 3. The sodium here is equal to 1, the Cl here is equal to 1, and the oxygen is equal to 2. So you have a problem because the oxygen here is 2 and the oxygen here is a 3. So what can you do? When you have a problem like this, remember the number 6 because he will solve everything for you here. This one you can multiply it by 3, so the oxygen will be 6, and the this one you can multiply it by 2, so this one will multiply by 2 and it will be equals to 6, so the magic number 6. But don't forget is that you are also multiplying this and multiplying this, so this sodium you have 2 and the chlorine you have 2, okay. So all you have to do is multiply this by 2, and this one will be 2 and this one will be 2, and everything will be perfect, okay. So just when you have 2 and 3 somewhere, remember number 6, multiply one side by 3 and the other side by 2, okay. Now when he asking about what is the type of this reaction, the type is actually decomposition, because as you can see guys is definitely the upper for what happened here, the opposite for what happened here. Here is we are forming one, okay. I mean calcium is reacting with the chlorine to form calcium chloride. In here no, it's definitely decomposing, so you have you have two one compound and one element, two outlet, okay. So moving on to the next one. Now the next one is C7H14 uniting with the oxygen to form what, okay. Now let me just put these guys together. 7H14 uniting with the oxygen to form something, okay. Now in here you have a condition that you are uniting you know, hydrocarbon with an oxygen. Remember this type of reaction, whenever hydrocarbon reacting with the oxygen, you will have a combustion reaction. Combustion reaction is burning, يعني تفاعل احتراق، okay. يعني دا يحترق عندك هيدروكربون. شنو معنى هيدروكربون؟ يعني كربون زائد هيدروجين، اوكي، مركب متكون من كربون وهيدروجين، اسميه بالهيدروكربون. This kind of compound you always go when the condition is right, you will always call him combustion, and the result always the same. The result always gonna be CO2 plus H2O. All you have to do is that you need to make the balance for this one, okay. So you have CO2 plus H2O, okay. Now moving on, in here you have carbon 7, hydrogen 14, and oxygen 2. In here you have carbon just 1, oxygen 2, and for here you have hydrogen 2 and oxygen just 1, okay. So what should you do? Okay, I mean you have 14. Since you have 14, consider multiplying this by 7, okay. Multiplying this by 7 is gonna cause that you have here 14, and oxygen will be just 7. Okay, so now we are almost there. Okay, and now I have 7 oxygens and I have 14 hydrogen. I'm all good for hydrogen. My hydrogen is equal. But remember, you have 7 carbon. Okay, so just multiply this by 7. Let's see what's gonna happen. Okay. Okay, now you're gonna have 7 carbon atom, and the oxygen you're gonna have how many? Guess what? You're gonna have 14. Okay, so in here you have only 2. Okay, I mean you have 7 here and you have 14 here. Okay, that's a big number. Okay, so what should I do? Consider this. 14 plus 7 is actually equal to 21, right? Okay, so I just should put 21 here and then divide it by 2. Now you're gonna say, why did I do that? Because you have 2 oxygen, okay, and multiply it by 21 over 2. 2 is gonna go with the 2 and you're gonna have 21 oxygen atom. Okay, so the final shape, you know, for this one is gonna be something like this. Okay, C7H14 plus oxygen is gonna have CO2 plus H2O. Okay, now the H2O is 7. Okay, the CO2 is 7. Okay, the oxygen is 21 over 2. Okay, to get rid of this 2. Okay, and in here you will have 7CH14. Okay, now taking a look, for checking just like time. Okay, carbon I have 7, hydrogen I have 14, oxygen I have 21 in here. Okay, moving on, carbon here I have 7 from here. Okay, now the hydrogen here I have in here, guys, you can check, I have 14. Okay, now the oxygen is 2 oxygen here, one of them is 2 multiplied by 7 is 14, and in here I have 7, which is equal to 29. So I'm all set up. Okay, so I'm happy. Okay, now remember this type of reaction, whenever you have a hydrocarbon, something carbon and a hydrogen, and they are reacting with the oxygen, you will always have CO2 plus H2O. Okay, and then you do the balancing, but this must always equal to like this. Okay, so this is called a combustion reaction. That means it's a reactions of burning. Okay, تفاعل احتراق. Okay, now moving on to the next one. The next one, guys, is the reactant of the CuCl2 with Na2S. Okay, now what do I mean by this? Okay, it's actually the reactant of the copper chloride with the sodium sulfur. Okay, disodium sulfur. Okay, so you're gonna have 2 compounds. Since you are having 2 compounds, the type of the reaction is double displacement, because it's a compound with a compound. Okay, so the Cl will attack, this is the plus part and this is the negative part, the anion part. This is also the anion part, and this is definitely the this is the anion part. Okay, so definitely this one will attack this part, and definitely always this one attack and take this. Remember, I always need to have NaCl. Okay, so NaCl, sodium chloride, reacting with CuS. Okay, copper sulfide. Okay, now let me do the balancing thing. The balancing, the Cu here I have 1, the Cl I have 2. Okay, the sodium I have 2 and the sulfur is 1. Okay, also here the sodium I have just 1 and the chloride I have just 1. So as you can see, I have a trouble here. The Cu is equal to 1 and the sulfur is equal to 1. So easiest thing is just multiplying this by 2. So multiply this by 2 and then you have everything set up. Okay, because this one is equal to 2 as this one. Okay, don't forget is whenever you have a compound with compound and they are changing places, this is called a double displacement reaction. Okay guys, okay, now moving on to the next one.